All right, welcome in August. We are going to kill it with fire, as David Lando says. Kill it with fire. Let's fucking go. Let's get this thing done. Um, who's hot, who's not? Thanks to David for finishing off July. We've had the trade deadline pass. We've had a few trades. Here we go. What does it look like? Well, no real big streaks. Illinois is on a 4-game winning streak for whatever that's worth down here in the no more tiers. Union Stewards have lost three, but it's see who's hot. 7-3 in the last 10. That's Chicago. And Northwest and Illinois, playing the role of the spoiler down here, are 7-3 in their last 10. So that's who's hot in No More Tears. And in Suck It Up, Chicago is playing really good. Their run differential's 211. I mean, they scored 614 runs. It's crazy. I might feature a couple games, but I'm gonna hit a lot of buttons, make this thing move along a little bit. I've been getting a lot of requests from people that let's move it along, move it along, move it along. Who is playing who? Scheduled games. Here we go. August 1st. Northwest, a spoiler team along with Illinois. Getting ready. Let's go. You're right, David. I'm going to auto play this one, and it's a low scoring affair. Colorado beats Northwest. Gary takes a hit. San Fran a winner. Union Stewards over Carolina. Manchester a win over Lancaster. Lancaster 5 back now. Chicago, that's the biggest lead we've seen in a long time in the Suck It Up division. Might even be for the whole season. Chicago a winner. Beantown a winner. How about Crystal Lake? Yes, Crystal Lake in second place. Carolina's giving them some competition there. Southside heads into Vegas. Smokey Joe Wood, a new pitcher, gets a win, 9-2. Vegas traded away a bunch of great starting pitchers this year. They're doing well for other teams. Northwest at Lehigh again. Cy Young, an 11 inning shutout. Lancaster gets a win this time. Crystal Lake, a 9-1 winner. Do I have another one of these? That might be. I'll do the other Southside Vegas game here. Southside, Mathewson, a winner. San Fran 4-2 over Gary. Union Stewards a winner, and Chicago over Washington. Beantown edges out Philly. On to the third. How does that change things? Manchester at Lancaster, 5-2. Philly, 7-2 over Beantown. Eddie Joss having a good year. Crystal Lake, a 1-0 shutout. Southside at Vegas. Can Vegas play the role of a spoiler? Not in this one. Walter Johnson, a big win. So Southside has got that third playoff spot locked down. Washington just 3 back of that. Carolina has that, but can Philadelphia close that 4.5 games, work their way into the playoffs? Southside heads to Gary. The Steel Mill Rats shut them out. Warren Spahn, 11-11 on the season. Union Stewards raining on Philly's parade. Lehigh, facing the scary Illinois team, gets a win. Lancaster, 3-2 win. Chicago, 9-8 over Manchester. Northwest, 12-5 over Beantown. Crystal Lake gets beat by Carolina. And Vegas over San Francisco. On to August 5th we go. Union Stewards in Philly. Union Stewards get a win there. Lehigh, big win, 16-2 over Illinois. Lancaster, a winner. Chicago gets beat. Manchester, been a rough season for them, but MV loves being the nemesis here to Clue and whatever team or franchise he has, whatever the name is. Beantown 10-2 over Northwest. Carolina a winner over Crystal Lake. And Southside over Gary. Beantown and Illinois having a great rivalry here. Who will get the most potential lottery balls in the draft? Beantown or Illinois is actually winning that. Beantown's there. There's always the playoff contenders and those that will be in the draft. So always something to look forward to. Here we go, August 6th. Gary shuts out Southside. Union Stewards seem like they've got Philly's number. Illinois sticking a dagger in a lizard. Lancaster a 2-1 win. Chicago a close one, just edges out 13-12 over Manchester. Hoyt Wilhelm, I think he's a new member of the Chicago team, gets in the game, gets a win. Northwest beats Beantown. Mark's like, here I come, David, here I come. Crystal Lake shuts out Carolina, so Crystal Lake maintaining that second place position. And Nooch in San Francisco, 14 inning win over Vegas. Let's go to the 7th. Union Stewards, another close win over Philadelphia. Beantown a winner. San Fran in 15 innings, seeing some extra inning games here, gets a win over Vegas. And Washington 2-1 over Southside. So let's stop here after a week into August. Take a look at what we've got here. Who's hot? Who's not? Do we see streaks? Chicago 8-2 in their last 10. Lancaster on a roll has won 5 in a row. And the Union Stewards, much to the chagrin of the Icemen of Philadelphia, are 7-3 and on a 6-game winning streak. Philly's lost 4 in a row. So kind of interesting to see these breakdowns as we move through August. Guess I could turn the snapshot back to some of the players. See who's leading. Lajoie leading the league in batting now. Guzman for Carolina still up there. ERA winner. Mule Suttles is now tied with Ruth and Hack Wilson for home run leader. It's kind of an interesting race. Chicago is 36 points better than the next batting team. That offense is very potent. Chicago into Gary. Gary could be a spoiler, but Chicago says nope. Matlock 15-5. Pretty good acquisition there in a trade from Illinois. Philly says thank you. I get to go to Illinois now. I can win. They win 7-6. Washington up in Southside. Again, Washington only 2.5 games back. Manchester a 4-2 win. Carolina 2-1. Carolina won't go away. They're trying to get that second place spot from Crystal Lake. Lehigh on the road at Beantown with the win. Crystal Lake, they get that win they need to keep pace. And Lancaster heads to Vegas, and Al Downing gets a win. So Lancaster in sole second place position, but 5 back. Manchester, Scherzer gets a shutout win. Carolina a winner. Lehigh beats Beantown. Crystal Lake a winner. Vegas upsetting Lancaster. Lancaster's 5.5 back now. Gary shuts out Chicago. Philadelphia piles on Illinois. And Washington beats Southside. So things interesting. Washington now pulls to just a game behind Southside. Southside's been on a South slide, as they like to say. On to the 10th we go. Manchester beats Southside again. Vegas doing a number on Lancaster. Washington beats San Fran. Chicago loses, so things tightening up a little bit. Lehigh over Union Stewards, and Crystal Lake is beat by Beantown. So as we go on to the 11th, Crystal Lake and Carolina trying to figure out who takes second, who takes third. Can Philadelphia do something? They're above 500 by a game and turn things around. And over there, it's got a two team race here for that third spot. South side of Washington deadlocked for that last playoff spot over there. So what will the rest of August reveal? San Fran gets a win. Lancaster, 18 inning game. Northwest beats Illinois. Union Stewards win. South Side, a 3-1 winner. Carolina beats Philly. Crystal Lake wins, and Chicago heads to Vegas, gets a win. On to August 12th. Gary beats Lancaster. A lot of these teams can be spoiler for those that are trying to get in. Northwest beats Illinois. Illinois is like, hey, give me the most. If I'm going to be this bad, give me the most lottery balls. Yeah, and don't write off Manchester. We got a heck of a race going on here between Illinois, Beantown, and Manchester for the most lottery balls. Lehigh squeaks by Union Stewards. Southside a winner. Washington a winner. Philly winner on the road. Crystal Lake wins, and Chicago beats Vegas. The Chicago team in the last 2 months has really been on fire. Lancaster wins. Washington takes a hit. Illinois edges out Northwest. David's like, damn. Lehigh 3-1 over Union Stewards. Manchester up in Southside. Philly loses to Carolina. Crystal Lake, a one-run victory. Chicago, I think they're going to end up sweeping Vegas. Matlock, 16-5. That was a heck of a pickup. I was looking at that, possibly adding him to the rotation. That was a good pickup early on for Chicago. Lancaster gets by Gary. So on to the 14th. We'll get through the 15th, take a look at the halfway month standings. Carolina winner. Philly shuts out Northwest, and Chicago facing Lancaster now pushes one game farther ahead. The 15th, Illinois wins. Oh no, what's wrong with the world? Chicago over Lancaster. Philly beats Northwest. Washington a winner. Beantown a winner. Crystal Lake and Lehigh. Crystal Lake a 1-0 shutout. Crystal Lake 7.5 back. Can they close that distance and vie for first place? It can happen. Southside a winner. Well, let's pull back halfway through August. Take a look at who's hot, who's not. Chicago again. They've rattled off 5 in a row. 7-3 in their last 10. They are on fire. Lehigh, Crystal Lake, and Carolina, all 7-3 in their last 10. Crystal Lake's won 4 in a row. Interesting. And here we go. August 15th. Let me take a look at stuff I've got here on my chart. All right. Lehigh and Crystal Lake. Crystal Lake, that's another win in a row for them. They beat Lehigh. They're only 6.5 back now. Northwest beats Carolina. Washington a winner. Washington only a half game back of that last playoff spot. What will Southside do? Philly gets a win. Beantown a win. Vegas beats Lancaster. Chicago a winner, and Southside a winner. So Southside holds on to that playoff spot by 1 game. Washington gets the win they need. Lehigh gets by Crystal Lake this time. Vegas has Lancaster's number. South Side. Northwest a winner. Philly edges out Illinois, and Chicago a 3-1 winner over Gary. So as we go on to the 18th, Southside and Washington having a big duel. Northwest a winner. Philadelphia 6-5 winner. Manchester beats Southside. Lehigh gets by the Union Stewards. Gary a winner. Chicago, Matlock again. This guy's name's coming up, 17-5. Crystal Lake a winner, and Washington a winner. So on to the 19th. Southside, Joe McGinnity. Lehigh gets shut out by the Stewards. Lancaster a win. Chicago beats Vegas. Chicago team seems pretty darn hard to beat. Washington 10-1. Illinois 11-8, 11-8 win. And Philly. Let's take a look at the bottom of the standings for a change. Illinois leading the way for worst team and thus the most lottery balls. Beantown is right there. So right now, only 2 games separate them. Who will get that coveted most lottery balls? Carolina beats Philly. Manchester over Southside. Southside now has fallen out of the playoffs for the first time in a long time. Washington has passed them. Lehigh 2-1. Lancaster a 6-2 winner. Vegas beats Chicago. Beantown a shutout. San Fran beats Washington. That's the best thing that could have happened to Southside. And Northwest beats Illinois, which is a win for Illinois. Gotta love it. 21st. Crystal Lake wins. Illinois loses. Both teams happy with that. Southside shuts out Manchester. Vegas beats Chicago. Gary, a 3-1 winner. And Philly beats Beantown. Philly now is only 3.5 out of that final playoff spot. A lot of baseball left here, about 6 weeks worth. Lancaster at Manchester. Lancaster gets a win. Lehigh goes into it. Northwest. These are the tough places to go. Northwest gets a win. Chicago over Washington. Philly a winner. So Philly doing a little bit better as they climb closer to the playoffs. Crystal Lake gets a win. Southside over Vegas. Union Stewards a winner. And San Fran a winner. So on to the 23rd. Southside and Washington battling it out. Manchester beats Lancaster. Carolina a winner. Gary wins. Lehigh has a tough time with Northwest for whatever reason. Washington a 4-3 winner. Philly over Beantown. So Philly's looking good. Crystal Lake a winner and Vegas wins. So let's take a look. After the 24th, we'll stop and take a look at where everybody is. Illinois a win. Lancaster gets their win. San Fran. Northwest keeps beating teams. Washington a winner. Philly and Lehigh now. Lehigh squeaks by. And Crystal Lake gets beat by Carolina. So let's pull out, take a look at the standings overall. Chicago with a really good lead, 8.5 games over there. They scored 733, 246 run differential. The team's just potent. 7-3 in the last 10. So Washington's been the hottest team over there. Philadelphia, the hottest team. Crystal Lake 7-3, but Philadelphia 8-2 in their last 10. Northwest on a 4-game winning streak. Beantown's lost 4. Yeah, exactly, David. Just so Union Stewards walk away with the top pick. Well, Union Stewards or Vegas. as they both appear to be tied for, um, well, no. That could end up being Southside or Philadelphia. There's several teams that could be known as the best record to not get in the playoffs. 25th, Beantown on the road. They get a win. Vegas beats Washington. Philly gets a win over Lehigh. So Lehigh's lead's only 5.5 over Crystal Lake now. Union Stewards 13-0. Southside a winner. Manchester a winner. Carolina beats Crystal Lake, not what Crystal Lake needed when Lehigh loses. They need to win. And Lancaster with the win. So Lancaster still in second place. Lehigh at Philadelphia. Lehigh gets a win. Pete Alexander, number 24. Trout's already won 20. Illinois gets a loss and holds on to the worst team. Southside shuts out Chicago. Gary a winner. Crystal Lake gets that win over Carolina. Lancaster shuts out San Fran. Lancaster is solid second place right now. Northwest beats Beantown. And Vegas over Washington. Illinois gets a win. Washington shuts out Gary. Crystal Lake and Philly. This could be an interesting series. Crystal Lake gets a 6-3 win. Lancaster beats Southside. Manchester beats Vegas. Carolina over Lehigh. That puts Crystal Lake as only 5 out right now. Chicago a winner. Beantown a winner. And Northwest. Crystal Lake and Philly. Philadelphia. Manchester, the spoiler. Chicago with a shutout. Lancaster over Southside. Lehigh shuts out Carolina. Gary a winner. And Union Stewards. So on to the 29th we go. Divisions are all up for grabs. Highest 6.5 point lead can be made up in a month easily. We've seen more than that made up a few times in our pennant races. Lancaster with a key win there. Puts Washington game and a half out of playoffs with Southside in that third spot. Chicago gets a win. Not surprising. Vegas beats San Francisco. Northwest, the spoilers. We saw them beat Lehigh. Now they're beating Crystal Lake when Crystal Lake needs to win. Union Stewards spoiling Philadelphia's chances. And Lehigh shuts out Illinois. Southside a winner. And Beantown upends Carolina. 2 days left in August. Lancaster a win. Lehigh a win. Manchester, Beantown, San Francisco, Northwest. Philly gets a win. Addie Joss 24 wins on the season, and Southside a win. So as we go on to the 31st, can Crystal Lake get a little closer to Lehigh or Lancaster a little closer to Chicago? Lancaster gets beat by Washington. Chicago gets beat, though. Vegas loses to San Francisco, and Southside beats Gary. Joe McGinnity, the Iron Man, 20-20. It's a lot of games pitched. So stop and take a look at where we are standings wise. We always rapid fire August because why not? Trade deadline's over. We can focus. My plan is for September to do a broadcast one day, get through half the month, and then the following day get through the next half of the month. So let's keep things moving along. Who's hot? 8-2. Lancaster 8-2 in their last 10. Has climbed back, closed the gap with Chicago. Over here, 8-2 Northwest. The community-run team is now ahead of Beantown and Illinois, and they have rattled off 8 wins in their last 10. They're playing pretty good. Let's take a look around the league. Wins. We have some wins out here. Let's take a look at who's doing what. Ruth now with sole lead in the home run department. He's moved ahead of Wilson and Suttles. That's probably one of the closest races I think I've seen with like 5 people within a couple home runs. Mike Donlin, Turkey Mike is leading the league ahead of Lajoie now. We see a lot of Chicago Vultures up here. Joe Mauer, Speaker, Arky Vaughn. Again, the team is what, 26? No, 34. 34 points higher than the next team. What do you got? Tris Speaker right now is the reigning MVP. And what do we got? If Southside, we got pitchers up here with wins. Addie Joss for Philadelphia. Joe McGinnity and Johnson. So we could nominate Bernie for the Human Fund Award if Southside and Lehigh make the playoffs for the 2 pitchers we have. Our 2 winningest pitchers actually came from Vegas at the beginning of the year. Stolen bases. Hamilton, this is really low. I think last year he had 100 or more. I would expected him to have more this year, but who knows why. Yeah, Chicago's batting crazy. 5.9 runs a game for Chicago. So there we have it. We're through August. Not much left to say. Taking a look at some of the games coming up when we start. Let's take a look at some of these teams and how they finish. Let's take a look. Southside, do they have any significant games when we finish? Well, there can be some spoiler games here, but they don't play any of the people like the last week that they're in contention with. I'm trying to think. Lancaster's a couple at Chicago. Lancaster has 5 of the last 8 at Chicago. That could be meaningful. And in this side, I think, let's see who Lehigh has. Lehigh will finish Beantown Union Stewards, Crystal Lake. Some of the matchups with Crystal Lake, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 times they'll get to face each other, which could be interesting. A lot of baseball left.